the 1960s, a decade etched in history as a time of profound transformation. Across the globe, people rose up to challenge the status quo, demanding equality, justice, and an end to oppression. From the streets of Selma to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, a generation found its voice, igniting a movement for civil rights that would reshape the very fabric of American society. At the heart of this struggle lay a fundamental question: would America live up to its promise of liberty and justice for all? For Black Americans, long denied their fundamental rights, the answer was a resounding no. But in the face of this injustice, a new spirit of resistance was brewing, fueled by a deep-seated yearning for freedom and equality. This was a decade of sit-ins and marches, of boycotts and freedom rides. It was a time when ordinary people, armed with nothing but the power of their convictions, dared to challenge the deeply ingrained systems of segregation and discrimination that had held sway for far too long. Greensboro, North Carolina, February 1st, 1960. 4 young black students, Ezell Blair Jr., Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil, and David Richmond, walked into a Woolworth's department store. Their mission to challenge the store's policy of refusing service to black customers at its lunch counter. These young men, all students at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, were no strangers to the indignities of segregation. They had grown up in a society where separate but equal was the law of the land, where black people were relegated to second-class citizenship. Their act was simple yet revolutionary. They sat down at the whites-only lunch counter and requested service. Their request was met with refusal, but the young men remained seated, their quiet dignity and determination speaking volumes. They knew the risks, the potential for violence and arrest, yet they held their ground. The Greensboro sit-in may have been a local act of defiance, but its impact would reverberate far beyond the walls of that Woolworth's lunch counter. News of the sit-in spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of similar protests across the South. From Nashville to Durham, from Raleigh to Jacksonville, students, many of them inspired by the courage of the Greensboro Four, began staging their own sit-ins, targeting segregated lunch counters, restaurants, libraries, and other public spaces. The sit-in movement was remarkable for its speed and spontaneity, its decentralized nature a testament to the widespread desire for change. These were not orchestrated events directed by established organizations, but rather grassroots actions driven by the collective will of a new generation. Section 4. Facing down hate with dignity and courage. The sit-in movement was not without its risks. Participants faced verbal abuse, threats, and physical violence. They were often spat on, kicked, and beaten by angry mobs. Restaurants poured food on them, and some were even burned with cigarettes. Law enforcement often sided with the segregationists, arresting the protesters for trespassing, disorderly conduct, and other trumped-up charges. Jails across the South swelled with the bodies of young people whose only crime was to demand the rights they were guaranteed by the Constitution. Yet, despite the danger, the sit-in movement continued to grow, fueled by the courage and determination of those who refused to be denied their basic human rights. The images of these young people, their faces etched with a mixture of defiance and dignity as they endured the taunts and blows of their oppressors, were beamed across the nation and around the world, pricking the conscience of a nation grappling with its own troubled soul. Section 5. A shift in the tide. The power of peaceful protest. The sit-in movement marked a turning point in the civil rights movement. It demonstrated the power of non-violent direct action to expose the brutality and injustice of segregation. By refusing to retaliate with violence, the protesters forced white America to confront the ugliness of its own racism. The world watched in horror as peaceful demonstrators were met with brutal force, their demands for equality dismissed with contempt. The sit-ins also galvanized the black community, instilling a sense of hope and empowerment. Here was a tactic that ordinary people, young and old, could employ to challenge the system. The sit-ins demonstrated that they were not powerless in the face of oppression, that they could make a difference. Section 6. The legacy of Greensboro, a blueprint for change. The Greensboro sit-in and the countless others it inspired had a profound impact on the civil rights movement. These acts of non-violent resistance helped to desegregate public spaces across the South, striking a blow against the Jim Crow laws that had enforced racial segregation for decades. The success of the sit-ins also emboldened activists to challenge segregation in other areas of American life, from transportation to education to voting rights. The movement gave birth to new organizations, such as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which would play a pivotal role in the struggle for civil rights. Perhaps most importantly, the sit-in movement demonstrated the power of peaceful protest to effect social change. It showed the world that ordinary people, armed with nothing but the courage of their convictions, could stand up to injustice and win. Section 7. Echoes of Greensboro in a Modern World. The legacy of the Greensboro sit-in continues to resonate today. The images of those young people, their quiet courage and unwavering commitment to justice, serve as a powerful reminder that ordinary people can make an extraordinary difference. From the streets of Hong Kong to the squares of Minsk, from the schoolyards of Parkland to the steps of the Capitol, the spirit of Greensboro lives on, inspiring new generations to stand up for what they believe in, to fight for a more just and equitable world. The struggle for civil rights is far from over, but the Greensboro sit-in and the countless acts of courage it inspired remind us that change is possible, that the arc of the moral universe does indeed bend toward